His people in Brazil tortured Patrick for a few hours, almost killed him, and then gave him to the FBI.
Sandy listened with his eyes closed tight. "Go on," he said.
2 days later, Stefano was arrested in Washington.
"How do you know this?"
I'm still paying a lot of money to the Pluto Group. We suspect that Stefano's talking to the FBI, while at the same time he's quietly following me. And my father.
"What am I supposed to tell Cutter?"
First, tell him about me. Tell him that I'm making decisions for Patrick, and I know everything. Then, tell him about my father.
When Dr. Hayani looked into Patrick's room in the morning, Patrick was sitting in a chair by the window, looking at the closed curtains. "Patrick, are you okay?" he asked. After a minute, Patrick answered, "I'm fine, Doc, but I didn't sleep at all." "You're safe now, Patrick. The sun's up." When he left, Patrick got up and walked to the door. "Did you sleep well?" the guard at the door asked, as he did every morning. "I slept safe, Eddie. Thanks," Patrick said, as he did every morning. He returned to his room and did some exercises. The routine was the same every day. He wanted to be Danilo again, with his quiet life in his small house. He wanted to walk along the streets of Pontapora and run in the country. He missed Brazil, and he missed Eva, her soft touch, her beautiful smile. He couldn't live without her. He'd escaped before. Why couldn't he escape again? He'd have a perfect life with Eva. He'd put her in danger, and now he must protect her. Could he do it again? Or had his luck ended? Sandy met Cutter at 8 a.m. "Do you remember that phone call you received 13 days ago?" Sandy asked. "The lady from Brazil?" Cutter said he did, and Sandy continued, "I've met with her a few times. She's a lawyer for Patrick." He quickly explained most of what he knew about Leah, though he never mentioned her name. Then he asked about the Stefano investigation. Cutter became cautious. "How do you know about that?" "The lady from Brazil knows all about Stefano. Remember? She gave you his name. He's still trying to get my client, and I'd like to stop him." "And how do you know this?" "Because his men in Brazil have kidnapped the woman's father." Cutter's mouth opened, and he looked at the ceiling. Then it made sense. "Does she know where the money is?" "That's a possibility. The kidnapping is an effort to make her go back to Brazil. Then they'll capture her and treat her like they treated Patrick. It's all about money." "There's not much we can do about it." "Yes, there is. Put pressure on Stefano. Tell him the woman isn't going to be trapped, that she's preparing to go to the Brazilian police with the name of Jack Stefano." "I'll see what I can do." Cutter hadn't forgotten the fact that Sandy had filed a several $1 million lawsuit against the FBI for crimes it didn't commit. "Stefano only cares about the money," Sandy said. "If the old man gets hurt, Stefano will never see any of it. Tell him to release the old man. Then we might talk about the money." Patrick walked around one end of the doctor's conference room while Sandy sat and listened. "Things are changing, Sandy," Patrick said without looking at him. "We have to move fast. She won't stay here while her father's missing." "As usual, I'm confused, but I'm just the lawyer. Why should I know anything?" "She has the files and records and the story. There's a beach house at Perdido. She's waiting for you there." "And I'm supposed to change all my plans and race over there right now?" Sandy said angrily. "I have other clients. I have court this afternoon. My daughter's got soccer." "I'm sorry, Sandy. I couldn't know about a kidnapping. Try and understand." Sandy took a deep breath. "What might we discuss at the beach house?" Sandy parked in front of the beach house. Leah answered the door with a smile. On the table was a box, and beside it were papers neatly arranged.
"This is the Arethea file," Leah said. "Patrick prepared it."
They sat at a small table in the kitchen and ate.
"How's Patrick?"
she asked. "Patrick's okay. The burns are getting better." He ate a bit. "I'm sorry. I forgot to ask about your father."
"I talked to my brother today, and there's still no word. It's difficult. I can't go home, and I can't stay here."
"I'm very sorry, Leah." He asked more questions, general questions, not about the kidnapping, as he ate. She didn't touch her food. When he finished, they moved to the table with the box and papers on it.
"How much do you know about the Arethea matter?"
she asked. "Just the information that was in the paper."
"These documents and tapes are the evidence for everything I'm going to tell you. The Arethea claim was false from the beginning."
She spoke slowly.
Benny Arethea made the plan to cheat both his company and his government. He was helped by some very good lawyers, Patrick's old firm, and a senator, Bogan's cousin, in Washington. Patrick was a new partner then. He wasn't included in the Arethea plan, but he knew something was happening. He found out that the secrecy was because of Arethea, and he was patient. He pretended to notice nothing, but he was gathering evidence. A lot of it's in his box.
"Explain how the claim was false."
Arethea ran new coastal shipyards in Pascagoula. It's a small division of Platte and Rockland.
"I know all that. They have big defense contracts and are known for cheating the government."
That's right. New Coastal was working on an enormous building program for the Navy. Arethea wrote false work records, claiming thousands of hours for work that was never done, for employees who never existed. He charged unbelievably high prices for materials. Drinking cups for $30 each, for example. He created piles of paperwork, very little with his name on it. He kept good records, which he later gave to his lawyers. They would file the lawsuit with the government, and Arethea would get the reward.
"And Patrick got the records." Sandy looked at the box. "And this has been hidden since he disappeared?"
Yes. Patrick always knew he'd be caught.
Sandy had lots of questions, but he told himself to relax. "So Arethea's plan worked. Did Bogan know Arethea had caused the overcharges?"
Yes.
She pointed to the box.
This box is full of tapes of their conversations.
They loaded the whole Arethea file into the trunk of his car and said goodbye. She promised to call him within 24 hours. Chapter 12. Stefano's Story, continued. The third day, Underhill was back. "We'll start where we stopped yesterday, Mr. Stefano. Your arrival in Brazil." "Right. It's a big country and has a history of being a great place to hide. We put together a file on Lanigan and had it translated into Portuguese. We had computer artists make pictures of his appearance. Then we hurried to Brazil and hired the best investigators we could find. In April 1994, we found the doctor who'd changed Lanigan's chin and nose. We knew then that he was in Brazil. Stefano's fourth meeting began early. The questioner was a new one, Oliver. "You were talking about the doctor who changed Lanigan's chin and nose," Oliver said. "Continue." Stefano got comfortable in his chair. "For a long time, we didn't find anything. Then, late in '94, we were contacted by an investigation firm in Atlanta, the Pluto Group. They said they might have some information I'd want. They had a mysterious client who claimed to know something about Lanigan. Obviously, I was interested. The client, not surprisingly, wanted lots of money. This was encouraging. If their client expected a big reward, then the client knew that Lanigan still had plenty of money. In July of '95, the Pluto Group approached me and said their client could lead us to a place in Brazil where Lanigan had recently lived. We agreed on the sum of $50,000. After the money was wired to a bank in Panama, I was given an address of an apartment building in the small city of Itajaí. We showed the manager our pictures of Patrick. He said the man's name was Jan Horst, a German who'd rented an apartment for 2 months. "What about the Pluto Group?" "We didn't hear much from them for 6 months. Then, in January of this year, they returned. Their client needed money and was ready to tell us everything. For a few $1,000,000, we could learn exactly where our man was. But their client wouldn't talk until the money was paid. And I wouldn't pay until their client talked. Eventually, another suggestion was made. For $50,000, we would get the name of a place where Lanigan had lived after he left Itajaí. We agreed, because it would tell us whether their client had good information. Where was the second town? São Mateus, a small town with friendly people. We spent a month there showing our pictures. The apartment manager recognized him as Derek Boone, a British man. We didn't learn anything more, so we left São Mateus in early March and decided to concentrate on the smaller towns near São Paulo and Rio. The Pluto Group still wanted $1 million, and my client wouldn't pay without being certain that the information was good. Did you ever learn how their client knew so much about Lanigan's movements? No. One theory was that their client was also chasing Lanigan for an unknown reason. The second theory, and the most likely, was that their client was someone Lanigan knew and trusted. My client and I decided we couldn't allow the opportunity to escape. How did you reach an agreement? In August of this year, they made another offer. Recent photos of Lanigan in exchange for another $50,000. We said yes. The money was wired, and they handed me the photos in my office. Could I see them, please? Sure. Stefano pulled them from his case. The first was Lanigan in a crowded market. He wore dark glasses. The second was taken as he walked along a sidewalk. He looked no different from any Brazilian. The third was Patrick washing his Volkswagen. The dark glasses were off, and it was a clear photo of his face. We agreed to pay the $1 million. The money was placed in an account in Geneva. Their client gave us the name of the town and the street address where he lived. We raced there and found him. His name was Danilo Silva. Then we watched him for a week. We had to be patient. If we made one bad move, the police would be told and would protect him. So we waited and planned. We finally captured him outside of town, on a small road with no witnesses, and took him to a house in Paraguay. Joined Oliver after a coffee break. We've seen the photos of the burns, Mr. Stefano, and we, the FBI, have been sued for the injuries caused by your men. Now tell us how you did it. I wasn't there. I knew he'd be given electric shocks. I had no idea it would cause serious burns. Underhill and Oliver looked at each other in disbelief and whispered. They both asked a number of questions about the capture and questioning. Finally, they asked the most important question. During the questioning of Mr. Lanigan, what did you learn about the money? Not much. He told us where the money had been, but it had been moved. The man who did the questioning believes that Mr. Lanigan didn't know where the money was. Did Mr. Lanigan mention a partner? I don't know. They whispered again and then paused. Stefano waited nervously. Then the door opened and Hamilton Janes walked in, followed by Warren. I've been listening in the next room, Janes said with a smile. And suddenly I wonder if you're being truthful. Stefano was more anxious. Of course I am. Of course. Have you ever heard the name Eva Miranda? She's a lawyer in Rio. A friend of Patrick's. No. Well, that's what bothers me, Jack. I think you know exactly who she is. You're trying to find her. I don't know what you're talking about, Stefano said weakly. Underhill spoke. He's lying. Oliver and Warren agreed. Janes picked up a sheet of paper. This is a story from a Rio paper this morning. It tells of the kidnapping of Mr. Paolo Miranda. His daughter is Patrick's friend, Jack. We've checked with the police in Rio. Nothing has been heard from the kidnappers. So where's Mr. Miranda? I don't know what you're talking about. Janes looked at the other end of the table. Still lying, Underhill said, and Oliver and Warren agreed. We had an agreement, Jack. You'd tell us the truth. We'd drop the charges against you, and we wouldn't arrest your clients. Now what am I supposed to do, Jack? Stefano looked at Underhill and Oliver. She knows where the money is, he said quietly. Do you know where she is? No. She left Rio when we found Patrick. We haven't found her. Janes looked at his men. Yes, Stefano had stopped lying. Leave the girl alone, Jack, and release her father. I'll think about it. No. You'll do it. Now. Chapter 13. Eva. Leah didn't see the man at the supermarket at first, but then she turned and saw his green eyes staring at her. She calmly walked away. Minutes later, she saw him again, hiding his face, but watching every move she made. She was frightened, but remained calm as she walked through the store. She saw him once more in the store, and then saw him walking through the parking lot. carrying nothing. She paid for her groceries as calmly as possible, but her hands shook as she took her change. She got in her car and drove in the direction of the beach house, though she knew she could never go back there. After a kilometer, she turned quickly and saw him 3 cars behind her. She desperately wanted to see Patrick so she could scream at him. This was not part of their agreement. She drove on, remaining calm, as Patrick had taught her. The man with the green eyes wasn't following her now, but she knew others would be watching. An hour later, she entered the airport in Pensacola and bought a ticket for the next flight, which went to Miami. In Miami, she bought a one-way ticket to São Paulo. Why not visit her country? The agent at the passport checkpoint had seen an announcement that the FBI was looking for a young Brazilian woman, age 31, and pushed an alarm. A manager appeared and said, "Could you step in here, Ms. Pires?" He pointed to a row of doors.
Is there a problem?
She demanded as they walked. "Not really, just a few questions." When they entered a small room, he asked about her reason for going to São Paulo. Then he asked, "Where's your baggage? According to our records, you entered the country 8 days ago. 8 days and no baggage? Seems odd, doesn't it?"
Is it a crime to travel without baggage?
She asked. "No, but it is a crime to use a false passport in the U.S. Do you know a person by the name of Ava Miranda?" Leah's heart stopped. Her face fell, and she knew the chase was at an end. The long table was piled with papers and files, and the Arathea box sat empty in a corner. Patrick and Sandy were looking through the files when Cutter walked in. "I thought you'd want to know that we have Ava Miranda. We caught her at the airport in Miami on her way to Brazil." Patrick stopped, shocked. "Where is she?" he asked. "In jail, in Miami. Just thought you'd want to know," Cutter said with a smile, and left. Patrick sat down. At least Stefano and Arathea hadn't caught her. She was safe with the FBI. But he couldn't believe she was returning to Brazil without him. "She was fine when I left her," Sandy said. "She didn't mention Miami or Brazil. She told me she rented the beach house for a month." Then she got scared. "Find a lawyer in Miami, Sandy, and quickly. She must be extremely scared." Ava had never been in jail before. She thought about her father and prayed that they weren't hurting him. And she prayed for Patrick. She found comfort in the money. Tomorrow she'd demand a good attorney. She'd be released soon and would be home to find her father. She'd hide somewhere in Rio. It would be simple. This was a safe place, she decided. The men who hurt Patrick and now had her father couldn't touch her. She knew the FBI would tell Patrick that they had her, and he'd have a plan. Sandy called Mark Burke, a criminal lawyer he knew in Miami. At 9 the next morning, Burke was at the jail. "Patrick sent me," he told Leah. "Are you okay?"
I'm fine. Thanks for coming. When will I be released?
"Not for a few days. Patrick's very concerned about you."
I know. Tell him I'm fine. And I'm very concerned about him.
"Now, Patrick wants a detailed account of exactly how you were caught." She smiled and relaxed. Of course, Patrick wanted details. Chapter 14. Settlements. At first, Bogan and Vetrano were happy when Patrick was found. But soon it became obvious that the money wasn't following him back to Biloxi. Then they remembered the bugs Stefano had discovered in their office. They'd forgotten about Patrick's tapes. Now they were worried. Too much had been said in the offices. "Do you think we'll get the money?" Vetrano asked. "No." There was a long pause. "We'll be lucky if we're not indicted." Sandy went to Parrish's office at 10 a.m. Parrish had asked for the meeting. There was a lot of missing information about the murder, and he wanted it. What was the cause of death? And the big question, who was killed? After a short discussion, Parrish said, "I have a suggestion. If your client gives me information, I can reduce his crime to accidental killing instead of capital murder. The penalty is 20 years in prison. Would he consider this?" "Go do it. Then we'll talk." Sandy returned to his room at the Biloxi Nugget Hotel, which he'd organized as his office. His first visitor was J. Murray Riddleton, Trudy's lawyer. Riddleton gave Sandy their suggested divorce settlement. They knew it would be changed to whatever Patrick wanted. The second visitor was Talbot Mims, the Biloxi lawyer for Northern Case. "Do you know Jack Stefano?" Sandy asked. Mims said he didn't. "I didn't think so. He's an investigator hired by Arathea, Northern Case, and Monarch Sierra to find Patrick. Look at these," Sandy said with a smile as he slid a set of photos of Patrick's burns across the table to Mims. "These were in the paper when you sued the FBI." "The FBI didn't find Patrick. We sued them to make people feel sympathetic toward Patrick. Anyway, the men responsible for these injuries were working for Stefano. Northern Case was one of his clients." Mims hid his surprise. "Can you prove this?" he asked calmly. "What do you want?" "The FBI can prove it. I want to talk to someone with the power to make decisions. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. "We'll be here," Mims said, and left in a rush. Hal Ladd, working for Monarch Sierra, arrived in the afternoon. Sandy repeated the questions, information, and demands. When Ladd left, Sandy went to a coffee shop to meet Cutter. "We need to have a serious talk," he said. "I can prove that the Arathea claim against Platt and Rockland was completely false, that he hired the Bogan firm to cheat the government, and that he had help from a senator. There's still the matter of the dead body." Cutter drank his coffee and then said, "What kind of proof?" "Documents, recorded phone calls." Cutter stared at Sandy. "Patrick gathered the evidence before he disappeared, and now he wants to make an agreement with us. But what about the murder?" "That's a state matter, not really your concern." The following morning, after a phone call from Cutter, Janes and several people from his office, Parrish, and Mast, the U.S. attorney for the district, met Sandy in his hotel room office. 2 court reporters were also present. No one smiled, but they weren't unhappy to be there. Sandy gave greetings from his client and discussed the charges against Patrick. "The government charges are serious, but they're small in comparison to capital murder. We'd like you to drop them so we can concentrate on the murder charge." We have an offer that includes money."
"We have no claim to the money," Jane said. "It wasn't stolen from the government."
"That's where you're wrong." Sandy explained how Arathea had worked with Bogan's firm to cheat the government out of $600 million. He told them about the documents and tapes. Then he said, "Here's our suggestion. We'll hand over the documents and tapes. Patrick will return the money, all of it. In exchange, the government will drop its charges. His Brazilian attorney, Eva Miranda, must be released immediately." Janes looked at the floor. "And it has to be done today," Sandy added, "or my client will keep the money, destroy the evidence, and spend his time in prison." "Well, let's talk about this," said Sprawling, one of the government officials with Janes. "Great idea," Sandy said, as he put a tape in the tape player. "The date was January 14th, 1992, he said. And he played a conversation between Bogan, Vetrano, and Arathea that mentioned the senator's cooperation. "Gentlemen, this is just one example," he told them when it finished. The others left the room to talk. It soon became obvious to Mast that the rest had already made their decision. "So we're going to accept it," he said, acting as if he didn't care. "Yes," Sprawling said. "We look good by getting the money back. Patrick stays in jail for a long time. We arrest more important criminals." The group returned to Sandy's office, and Sprawling spoke for them. "About the money, how much is your client willing to return?" he asked Sandy. "All $90 million. "The government wants all of it plus 9%. "We'll give 3% extra, making a total of $113 million. "We're concerned about the lawsuit you filed," Sprawling said. "We'll drop the charges against the FBI," Sandy said, "but I need Janes to do something for us. We'll discuss it later." "All right. When can your client come before the grand jury?" "Whenever you need him." "When would you like Ms. Miranda to be released?" "Tomorrow. Anything else?" "Nothing from the government," Sprawling said. "Good. Here's what I suggest," Sandy said. "We've already prepared a settlement agreement and an order to drop the lawsuit. You can sign it, I'll take it to my client, and within a couple of hours, we'll be sleeping well again. The FBI had left their street, and the neighbors had stopped calling. Her husband was relaxed. Then, at 5:30 a.m., the phone rang. "Who's calling?" she demanded when she picked it up. "Hamilton Janes, FBI." "Oh, my God," she said. "Jack, it's the FBI again." Stefano took the phone. "Good morning, Jack. This is Hamilton Janes. I wanted to let you know that we've got the girl, Eva Miranda. She's safe, so you can tell your men to stop looking for her." Stefano sat up. Their last hope was gone. The search for the money was finally over. "Congratulations," he said. "Look, Jack, I've sent some men to Rio. You have 24 hours to release her father. If he's not free by then, I'll arrest you and Arathea, and probably Mr. Addison at Monarch Sierra, and Mr. Gill at Northern Case." "I hear you." And the phone went quiet. Mrs. Stefano was in the bathroom with the door locked, too frightened to face him. Stefano went to the kitchen and made coffee. He was tired of Benny Arathea. He waited an hour and then called him. When Stefano called, Benny knew his dream was over. He'd hoped to find the money and then disappear with it, just like Patrick. But he still had $1 million, and he had friends in other countries. It was time to leave, just like Patrick. He and Guy left Biloxi after dark. Guy went to Mobile, and Benny went to New Orleans. He watched closely as he drove, but didn't see anyone behind him. He went to the airport and flew to Chicago. Then on to New York at dawn. The FBI was in Boca Raton, Florida, watching Benny's home. His Swedish girlfriend was still there. She'd leave soon, they thought, and it would be much easier to follow her. It was almost dark when Paolo, his eyes covered, was led from the house. When the car stopped, he was helped from the back. A voice said, "To your left, 300 meters, is a farmhouse with a telephone. Go there for help. I have a gun. If you turn around, I'll have to kill you." Paolo's body shook as the man uncovered his eyes and said, "Walk forward quickly." Paolo walked to the farmhouse and called the police. Then he called his son. In Miami, Mark Burke delivered to Ava the news that her father had been released and hadn't been harmed. Patrick called Carl and invited him for lunch. They sat outside and ate sandwiches. "I hear they caught your lady friend in Miami," Carl said. "Yes, but she'll be out of jail soon. Just a small problem with her passport." Carl ate a bite of his sandwich. He was getting used to long silences in their conversations. Finally, Patrick said, "Have you ever been to Brazil?" "No." "You should go sometime. The land's beautiful, and the people are gentle. It's my home, Carl. I can't wait to go back there. I'm not Patrick now. Patrick's dead. He was trapped in a bad life, fat and unhappy. I'm Danilo Silva, a much happier person with a quiet life in another country." "Listen, Patrick, I think it's time for me to give your case to Judge Trussell. I've done all I can to help you. I've told him about your awful injuries and how important it is for you to stay here as long as possible. He understands. But you have to realize that at some time you're going to be put in jail, and you might be there for a long time." "Do you think I killed that boy, Carl?" Carl put the rest of his sandwich down. "It looks that way. First, there were parts of a human body in the car, so somebody was killed. Second, the FBI has investigated everyone who disappeared around February 9th, 1992. Pepper is the only person within 450 kilometers who hasn't been heard from." "Do you think I killed him? Do you think I could kill someone?" "No, but your recent history is full of surprises." Patrick returned to his room, and Sandy arrived a few minutes later. "We did it." He threw the agreement on Patrick's work table. "We got everything we wanted." "How much money?" When Sandy told him, Patrick closed his eyes. That was a lot of his fortune. But there was plenty left. Enough for him and Ava to settle down somewhere safe one day and have a large house full of kids. He signed the agreement, and Sandy raced back to the hotel. Talbot Mims and a manager from Northern Case arrived at the hotel. Sandy took them to his office. Hal Ladd and a lawyer from Monarch Sierra joined them. Sandy repeated the information about Patrick's torture and reminded them that Stefano was working for 3 clients: Benny Arathea, and their 2 companies.
How do you plan to prove this?
Asked Mims. Sandy opened a door and asked Janes to join them. With great pleasure, Janes described the things Stefano had told them about the search for Patrick, the capture, and the torture. All done with money provided by Arathea and the 2 insurance companies. "Any questions for Mr. Janes?" Sandy asked happily when Janes finished. There were none. Both companies were rich, and neither company wanted this problem. "Here's the agreement," Sandy said. "First, Northern Case is trying to recover the $2.5 million paid to Trudy Lanigan. We prefer that you drop the lawsuit. Besides, most of the money has been spent. If you do this, my client will drop his claim for personal injuries against your company."
Is that all?
Mims asked, not believing it.
Yes, that's it. Okay, we agree.
Sandy gave them their settlement agreement and asked them to leave so he could talk with Ladd and his client. "Your settlement's a bit different," he told them. "You paid Stefano twice as much as they did, and you have a lot more cash than Northern Case."
How much do you have in mind?
Cohen, the Monarch Sierra lawyer, asked anxiously. "Nothing for Patrick. He's very concerned, however, about the child. She's 6, and her mother spends money quickly. Patrick would like $250,000 to go into a special account for her, money that her mother can't use. Plus, he wants the same amount to pay his legal costs. Total of $500,000, paid very quietly, so your client won't be embarrassed by those pictures of his injuries." The company was anxious to finish.
"We'll do it,"
Cohen said. Sandy handed him copies of their settlement agreement and left. At 8 that evening, Sandy visited Patrick. "It's all done," he said as he handed Patrick a pile of paperwork. "We gave the documents and tapes to the FBI an hour ago." Patrick took the settlement agreements and read them carefully before signing them.
"Good work, Sandy."
"We had a good day. Tomorrow we'll finish with Trudy. It's too bad the dead body is in your way."
Patrick stepped to the window, his back to the room. The curtains and the window were open. Sandy watched him.
"You have to tell me sometime, Patrick," he said. "Why don't we start with Pepper?"
Okay. I didn't kill Pepper.
"Was Pepper alive when you disappeared?"
Patrick shut the window, closed the curtains, and sat on his bed. Then he said in a quiet voice, "I knew Pepper. He came to the cabin asking for food in December of '91. He told me he lived in the woods most of the time. He was very shy. I cooked for him and asked about his family. He said he hadn't been home in 2 weeks. A couple of weeks later, he came again. I cooked and we ate. He said he'd had a fight with his mother. He hated her. When I told him I was a lawyer, he told me about his legal problems. At his last job, some money was missing, and they blamed Pepper. He didn't take it. It was another very good reason to stay in the woods. I said I'd help him.
And your plan began?
Something like that. We saw each other a few more times in the woods. I told Pepper the police were going to arrest him soon. This was a lie, but he was scared. I suggested disappearing.
He liked the idea of going to the mountains in the West. I got him a new name, a new driver's license, and a passport. On Sunday, February 9th, the date of your death? Yes. I drove Pepper to the bus station in Jackson. He was excited. I told him he could never come back. I gave him $2,000 and left him. His gun, tent, and sleeping bag were found in the cabin. I wanted them to think Pepper burned in the car. Where is he now? I don't know. Sandy was angry. If I ask a question, I deserve an answer. Why can't you tell me everything? Because you don't need to know everything. Sandy picked up the settlements. I'm tired. I'll be back tomorrow, and you'll tell me everything. Chapter 15. Final Arrangements. Ava walked out of jail at 8:30 a.m. Mark Burke rushed her to his car and took her to the airport, where a small jet was waiting to take her to New York. He told her that from New York, she'd go to London. Ava closed her eyes and thought of Patrick. Then she noticed the car phone and asked to use it. She called her father in Brazil and had a tearful conversation. She promised to be home soon. Her legal work in the United States was almost finished, and she missed her home. In New York, the people at the British Airways check-in counter looked at her questioningly because she had no baggage. She fought to control her nerves. She couldn't be arrested again. She loved Patrick, but this was too much. In the lounge, she had coffee and called Sandy. Are you okay? He asked.
I'm fine, Sandy. I'm at JFK, on my way to London. How's Patrick?
Wonderful. We've made a settlement with the government people. $113 million. Sandy waited for her to say something.
When?
Was all she said. I'll have instructions when you get to London. Call me when you get to the hotel.
Tell Patrick I still love him, even after going to jail.
Later in the morning, Sandy met with Riddleton to look over the divorce settlement agreement. Trudy had already signed it, and Riddleton didn't want to see her again. We'll sign it, Sandy said. There's a new arrangement involving your client and her lawsuit with Northern Case. They're going to drop their lawsuit against Trudy. Riddleton's mouth opened. Sandy gave him a copy of the Northern Case Insurance Settlement Agreement, which he read curiously. What a pleasant surprise. There's one other thing. Sandy told him about the special account that had $250,000 for Ashley Nicole. Anything else? Riddleton asked with a broad smile. That's it. The divorce is finished. Patrick was taken into the courthouse through a side door. He wore new clothes that Sandy had bought. He was pale and thin, but seemed to have no difficulty walking. Actually, Patrick felt great. He entered the courtroom, smiling, and sat at his table. He was relaxed because he knew that this jury couldn't do anything to him. He talked about the law firm and told the story of Benny Arathea and how he'd gathered his evidence. The jury listened with great interest for 2 hours. After a short break, some of the taped conversations were played, and they listened for 3 more hours. The grand jury voted to indict Benny Arathea, Charles Bogan, Doug Vetrano, Jimmy Haverack, and Ethan Rapley for planning to cheat the government under the False Claims Act. Janes and Sprawling returned to Washington. Before dawn the next morning, officers arrived at the homes of the law firm partners and arrested them. They were taken to jail, but released immediately because of their connections with several judges. I had a car wreck case once. The driver was killed, and 2 people were injured. It was the truck's fault, Sandy, but the driver claimed that our client's car was speeding. We found a witness, Mr. Clovis Goodman, age 81. He tried to help the injured people in the car, but couldn't. He left without saying anything to anyone. Later we found him, but he was still too upset to talk about it. Clovis lived alone in the country, and I asked if I could visit him. He was a lonely old man who didn't trust lawyers. We drank coffee and talked about everything except the wreck. When I asked about it, he informed me softly that he was there, but he couldn't talk about it yet. I went back, and we exchanged more stories. I took him to dinner, and we stopped for a few beers. But he still couldn't talk about the wreck. After a month, I put pressure on him. I told him we'd reached an important point in the lawsuit, and it was time for him to answer some questions. He said he was ready. He had tears in his eyes and wanted to help the family in the car. They weren't speeding. We went to trial, and Clovis Goodman was the best witness I've ever seen. The jury gave our clients $2.3 million. We became friends. When he got sick and couldn't live by himself, I moved him into a nursing home and took care of his finances. At that time, I was his only friend. He hadn't heard from his relatives for years. He got very sick in January of '92. I moved him to a hospital and visited every day. On February 6th, he died. Sandy breathed heavily and closed his eyes tightly. Clovis wasn't buried, was he? He asked. No. I put his body in a freezer at my cabin. Sandy was shocked. I didn't kill anybody, Sandy. I needed a body, but he was already dead when his body burned. Sandy walked around the room, then leaned on the wall. Let's hear the rest of it, he said. I'm sure you have everything planned. I've had time to think about it, yes. There's a Mississippi law about destroying a dead body. It's the only one they can use on me. The penalty is 1 year in jail. If that's all they can use, Parrish will try very hard to get that. He can't let you walk away without any punishment. No, he can't. But he won't know about Clovis unless I tell him. And I have to tell him before he'll drop the murder charges. But I'm the only witness, and there's no way to prove the burned body was Clovis. So what's the plan? You go to Clovis's granddaughter, tell her the truth, and offer money. We make a settlement with her quietly, and to get the money, she agrees to tell Parrish not to charge me. Sandy walked around again, thinking. We have to give Parrish something, he said. It's not just him, it's the system, Patrick. If you aren't punished, then you've bought your way out of jail. Everybody else looks bad. Then I'll say I'm guilty of destroying Clovis's dead body. I'll go to court and pay money, but no jail time. I'll be free. No one in Brazil will care. Sandy stopped walking and sat on the bed beside Patrick. So you'll go back to Brazil?
It's home, Sandy.
And the girl?
We'll either have 10 kids or 11. We haven't decided.
How much money will you have?
Millions. You have to get me out of here, Sandy.
Sandy
I have
visited
another
Clovis's
life.
granddaughter at the coffee shop where she worked. I have good news for you, he said. They sat at a table and had coffee. As efficiently as possible, he told her Patrick's story. She found it amusing.
Give him the death penalty,
She said,
He didn't kill anybody. The body in the car was already dead. He just stole it. The body was Clovis Goodman, your grandfather.
She looked at him with narrow eyes.
He burned Clovis? Why? He had to have a dead body. Clovis was his client and friend.
She looked confused.
It's a crime to destroy a dead body. That means Clovis's family can sue my client.
She smiled and said,
Now I understand.
Sandy smiled too.
Yes, that's why I'm here. My client would like to make a very quiet settlement with you. How much? What's the most you'll pay?
Sandy drank his coffee.
50,000. Okay.
They shook hands. Sandy gave her a settlement agreement to sign and wrote a check. Ava left her London hotel and took a long walk. She looked in the store windows and then stopped for lunch. She listened to the happy people who had no idea who she was. They didn't care. She felt more like Leah Pires than Ava Miranda. She began shopping, without paying attention to the prices. She was a very wealthy woman at the moment. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, she had a meeting with the manager of Deutsche Bank's London office. His bank would wire $113 million from its Zurich office to its Washington office, following her instructions. After the wire, there would be $1.9 million in the account. Another Swiss account had $3 million. A bank on Grand Cayman held $6.5 million. A financial advisor in Bermuda had $4 million, and $7.2 million was in Luxembourg. The Swedish lady left Benny Arethia's home and put her baggage in his BMW. She sped away, went to the airport, and took a plane to London. When she landed, the officials were watching for her. She took a taxi to her hotel and was delayed at the front desk until the manager was told that the bug had been placed in the phone in her room. As soon as she went into her room, she called Benny. She told him she was scared, but didn't think she'd been followed. They made arrangements to meet at a coffee shop in an hour. She waited there, but Benny didn't come. The next morning, she read all the newspapers in the hotel. On an inside page of the Daily Mail, she finally found a 2-paragraph story about the capture of an American criminal, Benny Arethia. She packed her bags and took a plane to Sweden. Patrick was rushed through the back door of the courthouse and into Carl's office. His wounds were still bandaged, and he wore his hospital clothes to remind people that he was hospitalized, not in jail like a criminal. "I spent 2 hours with Judge Trussell this morning," Carl said. "I told him that, in my opinion, this isn't a capital murder trial."
There's not going to be a trial, Carl. Remember the Hoover trial? A truck hit a car, killing the driver and injuring 2 passengers? My first trial in your courtroom?
"Of course," Husky said, relaxing at his desk. Patrick told him the Clovis story. When he finished, they sat silently for a few minutes. Then Carl said, "I hear the government's dropped all charges against you." "That's correct. I talked to the grand jury yesterday. It was great fun, Carl. Finally telling all the secrets I've been keeping for years." "So, the divorce is settled, the government's dropped all charges, and you've agreed to pay back a total of $113 million. The capital murder trial won't happen because there wasn't a murder. The lawsuits filed by the insurance companies have been dropped. Pepper's still alive. That just leaves the charge of destroying a dead body. A small crime." Carl admired his thin friend. He'd talked to Judge Trussell at the end of the table, with Sandy on his right and Parrish on his left. Since the government charges had been dropped, Parrish felt pressured to get justice from Patrick for the state. "You can forget murder, Terry," Patrick said. "I didn't kill anyone. The person in the car had been dead for 4 days." Parrish questioned him and accepted that Patrick was right. But he wasn't going to give up completely. "Looks like a year in jail," he said. "A year in Parchman should be good for you." "Sure, except that I'm not going to Parchman. You don't have a body. You have no idea who was burned, and I'm not telling until we make an agreement. Drop the charges. You can't win." "The family of the dead person doesn't want to sue Patrick," Sandy said. "You can't prove anything against me. There are no witnesses, and the evidence isn't good enough." "You can't make us look like fools," Parrish said. "Give us something." "I'll say I'm guilty of destroying the dead body, but I get no jail time. You can explain to the judge that the family doesn't want to sue me. You can talk about the torture and what I've been through. You can do all that, Parrish, and you'll look very good. But no jail." Parrish thought for a minute. "And you'll tell us the name of the dead person?" "I will, but only after we have an agreement." "Okay, but I have to speak with Judge Trussell. He'll have to agree too." Patrick smiled at Sandy. Parrish stood up to leave. "Oh, I almost forgot," the district attorney said. "What can you tell us about Pepper Scarborough?" "I can give you his new name and passport number." Sandy, Parrish, and Judge Trussell spent several hours working out a plea agreement to reduce the charges against Patrick. Sandy took it to him at the hospital. They read the agreement aloud, and Patrick signed. Sandy noticed that he was already packing. Back in his hotel room office, Sandy's phone rang. It was Jack Stefano, who was downstairs and wanted to talk. "I'm here out of curiosity," he told Sandy when he arrived in the office. "Had they caught Arathea?" Sandy asked. "Yes, just hours ago, in London. I'm not working for him anymore. I was hired to find the money. I tried, I got paid, and that's finished. But I'm extremely curious about something. We only found Lanigan in Brazil after someone gave us information about him. Someone who knew him well, his movements, his habits, his false names. It was planned by someone very smart. It has to be the girl, right? One of these days, if you learn the truth, I'd like to know. I won't sleep well until I know if she's scheduled for 5 o'clock in the courthouse. Patrick put on new pants and a large white shirt. He shook hands with Hayani and thanked him for his friendship. After 2 weeks as a patient and prisoner, Patrick left the hospital. His lawyer was at his side, and his guards followed behind. It was supposed to be a secret hearing to complete the secret agreements, but people heard about it. In less than 30 minutes, half the city knew, and the courtroom was crowded. Patrick smiled for the photographers as he was led to the jury room. Carl entered and asked the guards to wait in the hall. "When are you leaving?" he asked. "I don't know. Soon." "Can I go with you?" "Would you really leave? If you had the chance to disappear right now, would you do it?" "No, I wouldn't leave. But I don't blame you." Everybody wants to disappear, Carl. At some time in life, everybody thinks about walking away. Problems can be left behind. Judge Trussell entered the courtroom. Patrick was led through the door and stood next to Sandy in front of the judge. He didn't look at his audience. "Mr. Lanigan," Trussell said, "first, you've asked us to reduce the charges from capital murder to destroying a dead body." People were surprised. Destroying a dead body? Parrish explained the recent developments in the case. "Next, it's been suggested that this court should accept a plea of guilty to the charge of destroying a dead body. Mr. Parrish?" And Parrish told the story of Clovis. "What's your plea, Mr. Lanigan?" the judge asked. "Guilty," Patrick said, firmly, but with no pride. "Does the state have a recommended punishment?" Parrish walked to his table, looked through his notes, and returned to the judge's desk. "Yes, Your Honor. I have a letter from Ms. Dina Postel of Meridian, Mississippi. She's a grandchild of Clovis Goodman." He handed a copy to Trussell. "In the letter, Ms. Postel asked this court not to punish Mr. Lanigan for burning her grandfather's dead body. He's been dead for over 4 years, and the family doesn't want any more suffering. So the state recommends a punishment of 12 months in jail. However, this punishment can be dropped because of Mr. Lanigan's good behavior. We also recommend that he pay $5,000 and all court costs." "Mr. Lanigan, do you agree?" Trussell asked. "Yes, Your Honor," Patrick said, unable to lift his head. "Then I order you to make this payment within 1 week. Anything further?" Both lawyers quietly said no, and he closed the hearing. Patrick exited quickly. He was anxious to leave, but he waited in Carl's office until it was dark and all the people had left. At 7 o'clock, he said goodbye to Carl and thanked him for his friendship and help. Sandy drove Patrick out of Biloxi to New Orleans. Using Sandy's car phone, Patrick called Ava. It was 3 a.m. in London, but she answered quickly. "Ava, it's me," he said. "Yes, I'm fine. I've never felt better. And you?" He listened for a long time, his eyes closed, his head leaning back. Then he said, "I'll meet you in Aix, at the Hotel Galicie, on Sunday. I love you." They drove into Louisiana in silence. Then Sandy said, "I had a very interesting visitor this afternoon." "Really? Who?" "Jack Stefano. He visited me at the hotel. He said he was sorry his boys injured you so much when they caught you. He told me about the person in Brazil who gave him information about you and about the Pluto group. And he asked me directly if Ava sold the information. He's curious because he found his man, but didn't get the money.
For the last 3 years, I've been chased in my sleep by 100 men. All of them were hired by Jack Stefano. I finally got tired of it, Sandy. I gave up. Disappearing is an adventure until you learn that someone's trying to find you and is watching everything you do. I stole too much money, Sandy. They had to come after me. When I learned they were already in Brazil, I knew the end would come. So I decided to do it my way, not theirs. Patrick breathed heavily, looked out the window, and tried to organize his thoughts. The rewards were my idea, Sandy. Ava flew to Atlanta, where she met the Pluto group. We paid them, and we gave Stefano information. Sandy turned slowly, his mouth open. "You're lying," he said. "I know you're lying." "No. We collected $1,150,000 from Stefano. It's hidden now, probably in Switzerland with the rest of it."
"You don't know where it is?"
"She's been taking care of it. I'll find out when I see her." Sandy was too shocked to say anything else. Patrick continued. "I knew they'd capture me, and I knew they'd try to make me talk. But I didn't know this would happen." He pointed to the rope mark above his left ankle. "They almost killed me." I finally gave up and told them about Ava. By then, she was gone, and so was the money.
"They almost killed you," Sandy said.
"That's true. But 2 hours after I was captured, Ava called Cutter in Biloxi, and he called the FBI in Washington. That's what saved my life. Stefano couldn't kill me because the FBI knew about it." Sandy wanted to stop the car, get out, and scream. "You were a fool if you let them catch you." "Oh, really? Didn't I just walk out of the courtroom a free man? Didn't I just talk with the woman I love dearly? A woman who's keeping a small fortune for me? The past is finally gone, Sandy. Don't you understand? There's
Sandy
no one
took him
looking
to his
for
mother's
me
house
anymore.
and drove away. In the morning, Patrick woke up smiling. His life of hiding was over. He and his mother talked, drove around the city, and did some shopping. Then Patrick went to the airport. He flew to Atlanta, and from there to Nice, France. He'd last seen Ava a month earlier, in Rio. She'd almost persuaded him to run and hide again. But he was tired of running. They'd said goodbye near her apartment. He'd kissed her and walked away, leaving her crying. He flew back to Ponteporra and began waiting. On Sunday, when the train from Nice arrived in Aix, Patrick took a taxi to the Hotel Galicia. She'd reserved a room in both names, Ava Miranda and Patrick Lanigan. But she hadn't arrived yet, the clerk informed him. He went to the room, unpacked, and fell asleep, dreaming of her. When he woke up, he went for a walk. Maybe they'd live here. They'd stay here for a week or so, then go back to Rio. But maybe Rio wouldn't be home. Feeling free, Patrick wanted to live everywhere, to experience different cultures, to learn different languages. He refused to worry. He waited until dark, and then walked slowly back to the hotel. She wasn't there, and there was no message. He called the hotel in London and was informed that she'd left yesterday. He called her father. She was in London, Paolo said. he would say nothing more. Patrick waited 2 hours and then called Sandy. "She's missing," he said, now frightened. Sandy hadn't heard from her. Patrick stayed in Aix for 2 days, walking, calling Sandy and Paolo. Alone in his room, he cried from a broken heart. He drank too much alcohol. On the 3rd day, he left, asking a clerk to keep an envelope at the desk for Ms. Miranda if she arrived. He flew to Rio. He wasn't sure why. She was too smart to go to Rio. Patrick had taught her too well how to disappear. No one would find Ava, unless she wanted them to. He visited Paolo and told him the whole story, leaving him crying. He stayed in small hotels close to her apartment. Now he was the hunter, not the hunted, and a desperate one. He was almost out of money. Eventually, he called Sandy and asked to borrow $5,000. Sandy quickly agreed. He gave up after a month and returned to Ponteporra. He could live in a country he loved, in a pleasant little town he also loved. Where else could he go? His journey was over. His past was finally closed. Surely, someday, she would find him.